Karen didn't knock on my door. She cited subsection 4.3b of the HOA bylaws like she was reading my eviction notice. That was the moment I knew this wasn't about noise or parking or even the gym. This was war. The idea to build a garage gym came to me on a quiet Sunday morning, the kind where the neighborhood feels suspended in time. No lawnmowers, no barking dogs, just the low hum of distant traffic and the smell of coffee drifting through open windows. I stood in my garage, hands on my hips, staring at the clutter I'd been ignoring for years. Old paint cans stacked like ancient relics. A broken lawn chair. Holiday decorations that hadn't seen a holiday since before the HOA banned inflatable Santas taller than 4 feet. And in that moment, I saw it. Not the mess. The potential. A squat rack against the back wall. Rubber mats underfoot. Dumbbells neatly racked. A bench. A pull-up bar mounted clean and solid. A sanctuary. No crowds. No waiting for equipment. No gym bros curling in the squat rack. Just iron discipline and progress, right there in my own garage. I checked the HOA rules. Twice. Then a third time, just to be safe. No commercial activity. No exterior modifications visible from the street. No excessive noise during quiet hours. That was it. Nothing about personal fitness equipment. Nothing about a home gym. Nothing about barbells, bumper plates, or the unmistakable clank of self-improvement. I was in the clear. Or so I thought. The first sign of trouble started with the delivery. The squat rack arrived on a Wednesday afternoon, strapped to a pallet and wrapped in enough plastic to survive a small apocalypse. The delivery truck hadn't even pulled away before I noticed her. Karen. She stood on her driveway 3 houses down, frozen mid-step like a deer who had just spotted a predator. Sunglasses perched on her head. Clipboard in hand. Floral blouse tucked into high-waisted pants that screamed retired but restless. She watched. Didn't wave. Didn't smile. Just watched. Her eyes followed every movement as I signed the delivery slip, dragged the boxes inside, and closed the garage door. That should have been my warning. Over the next few days, I worked methodically. Rubber flooring first, thick, interlocking mats that muted sound and protected the concrete. Then the rack bolted down with care. The bench assembled solid and clean. Plates stacked by size like a work of art. By Friday evening, it was done. I stood there, breathing in that faint rubber and metal smell, feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Pride. Saturday morning was my first workout. Nothing crazy. Just squats. Controlled. Respectful. No dropped weights. No loud music. The garage door stayed closed the entire time. And still, I felt it. That subtle pressure. Like being watched. The note. I found it taped to my mailbox. Not slipped inside. Not mailed. Taped. Bright white paper, folded once, secured with aggressive precision. Typed. Of course it was typed. Notice of non-compliant activity. It has come to the attention of the HOA that you may be engaging in unauthorized structural and/or lifestyle modifications within your property that could violate community standards. Please cease all related activity immediately until a formal review can be conducted. No signature. No greeting. Just a threat dressed as bureaucracy. I knew exactly who it was from. Karen had graduated from staring to striking. She didn't wait long. That afternoon, as I was returning a kettlebell to its place, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there she was. Up close. Arms crossed. Clipboard pressed against her chest like a shield. A smile that never reached her eyes. "Hi," she said, already annoyed. "We need to talk." We. The most dangerous word in any HOA sentence. "I'm a little busy," I replied calmly. She ignored that entirely. "I've received multiple concerns," she continued, tapping the clipboard, "about what you're doing in your garage." "From who?" I asked. She hesitated, then smiled wider. "The community. Of course." She flipped a page with dramatic flair. "Section 4.3b, she began, reading aloud like a prosecutor. "Properties may not be used in any way that disrupts the aesthetic harmony or intended residential use of the neighborhood." I blinked. "I'm working out," I said. "In my garage." She sniffed. "That's not what it looks like." I glanced over my shoulder at the closed garage door. "What does it look like?" She leaned in slightly, lowering her voice as if sharing classified information. "It looks like a commercial operation." I almost laughed. "Almost. This isn't a gym for the public," I said. "It's for me." Karen straightened, clearly displeased that I hadn't folded immediately. "Well," she replied, "that's not how it was presented to me." "By who?" "Her. Always her." She closed the clipboard with a sharp snap. "For now," she said, "consider this a warning. If the activity continues, the HOA may pursue fines. Daily fines." There it was. The hammer. "I've reviewed the bylaws," I said evenly. "There's nothing against a personal gym." Her smile faded. "Just a fraction." "We'll see," she replied. And with that, she turned and walked away, heels clicking with the confidence of someone who believed the rules existed solely for her convenience. I closed the door slowly. My gym sat behind me, silent and innocent. This wasn't about noise. It wasn't about rules. It wasn't even about the HOA. Karen didn't like that I had built something for myself. Something she couldn't control. And that's when I realized. This wasn't going to end with a polite disagreement. This was only the beginning. The first official letter arrived 3 days later. Not a warning. Not a conversation. Not a courtesy notice. A formal HOA violation letter. Thick paper, embossed logo, and enough legal language to make it feel like a lawsuit in envelope form. It sat in my mailbox like a loaded weapon. The letter. Notice of potential violation. Community Standards Review. This correspondence serves as formal notification that your property is under review for possible violations of HOA regulations related to unauthorized usage of residential space, noise concerns, and potential commercial activity. Commercial. Again, they loved that word. It made my garage gym sound like I was running an underground fight club instead of doing squats in sweatpants. At the bottom, in bold, failure to comply may result in fines, penalties, and further enforcement actions. And there it was. Karen's favorite language. Consequences without context. That same week, the vibe changed. Subtle at first. Neighbors who used to wave now watched. Garage doors opened slower. Conversations stopped when I walked by. Not openly hostile, just cautious. Curious. The kind of quiet judgment that grows when one person starts whispering into many ears. And I knew exactly whose voice was doing the whispering. Karen had weaponized the HOA rumor mill. 2 days later, I saw her talking to Mrs. Patterson across the street. Then to the Johnsons. Then to a couple I didn't even know by name. Every interaction followed the same pattern. Low voice concerned expression, slow nodding, clipboard present. She wasn't gossiping. She was campaigning, framing herself as the protector of community standards, while quietly painting me as the neighborhood problem. The inspection. Friday afternoon at 4:37 p.m. The knock came sharp and official. Not the neighborly kind. The authority knock. I opened the door to find Karen standing beside a man in a polo shirt with the HOA logo stitched over his chest. His name tag read, Mark, Compliance Officer. Karen looked pleased. Not smug. Not smug enough. This was bigger than smug. This was satisfaction. "Hello," Mark said politely. "We're here for a compliance review." Karen didn't speak. She didn't need to. This was her moment. Inside the garage. I opened the garage door. The gym stood clean, organized, silent. No music. No chaos. No mess. Just equipment. Iron. Order. Discipline. Mark stepped in, looking around slowly. He checked the floor. The walls. The rack. The plates. The bench. He made notes. Karen hovered behind him like a supervisor overseeing an employee inspection. "This," Karen said, gesturing dramatically, "is what I was talking about." Mark turned to her. "And what exactly is the violation you're reporting?" Her mouth opened. Paused. Closed. Opened again. "Well," she said, "it's clearly not normal residential use." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Home gyms are common," he replied calmly. Her face tightened. "But the noise?" "I work out with the door closed," I said. "And the commercial activity?" Mark asked. "There is none," I replied. Silence. Karen shifted. For the first time since this started, she didn't look in control. Mark flipped through his clipboard. "There's no bylaw prohibiting personal fitness equipment," he said. "There's also no restriction on internal space usage unless structural modifications affect the exterior." Karen's voice sharpened. "But Section 4.3b. He interrupted her gently. "That section refers to external aesthetic impact and nuisance activity, not private interior use." She blinked. "Hard. You're saying this is allowed?" Mark nodded. "As of now, yes." The air changed. Karen's posture stiffened. Her lips pressed tight. This wasn't the outcome she expected. The pivot. But Karen didn't retreat. She adapted. "Well," she said quickly, "then we'll just have to monitor the noise." Mark turned to me. "If we receive documented complaints with verified decibel violations during quiet hours, we'll reassess." I nodded. "Fair." Karen smiled again. But this one was different. Cold. Strategic. Calculated. She didn't lose. She repositioned. After that day, the complaints started. Anonymous noise reports. Unspecified disturbances. Vague accusations. Sounds of heavy impacts. Unusual activity. Mechanical noises. Every single report came with no timestamp. No witnesses. No evidence. Just words. And every report went through Karen. The pattern. Always after my workouts. Always during daytime hours. Always vague. Always unverifiable. She wasn't trying to shut me down legally anymore. She was trying to exhaust me. Pressure me. Make it inconvenient. Make it uncomfortable. Make me quit voluntarily. That was her real strategy. Not enforcement. Attrition. One evening, as I re-racked a barbell, I laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was absurd. A woman with a clipboard was trying to control what I did inside my own garage. Not because it broke rules, but because she couldn't stand not being in control. Karen didn't care about bylaws. She cared about dominance. Order. Authority. The illusion of power. And now that her official route failed, she was going informal. Psychological. Social. Subtle. The calm before the storm. Because I knew something she didn't. People like Karen don't stop. They escalate. They don't accept boundaries. They look for new angles. New rules. New leverage. And when they find it, they don't hesitate. Karen didn't come at me the same way after the inspection. No letters. No visits. No clipboard patrols. That's how I knew something worse was coming. Because when Karen went quiet, she wasn't giving up. She was researching. The new tactic. It started with a rumor. Not an accusation. Not a complaint. A concern. One that drifted through the neighborhood like smoke. "Did you hear about the weights? Someone said they could damage the foundation. I heard the HOA might be liable if something collapses." None of it came directly from Karen. That was the genius of it. She didn't speak loudly anymore. She planted seeds. And let fear do the rest. The emergency meeting notice. The email hit my inbox at 6:12 a.m. on a Tuesday. Subject line. Urgent. Special HOA meeting. Safety and structural concerns. Safety. Structural. Those words don't belong next to a squat rack. But Karen had found a new angle. One that didn't rely on rules that existed. Only on rules people assumed existed. The HOA clubhouse smelled like burnt coffee and old carpet. Folding chairs lined up in uneven rows. About 20 neighbors showed up. Far more than usual. That alone told me Karen had been busy. She sat at the front table, centered. Not beside the board. Not behind them. Centered. Like she belonged there. When I walked in, heads turned. Not hostile. Uneasy. That was worse. When the meeting began, Karen raised her hand before anyone else. The HOA president hesitated. Then nodded. "Big mistake." "I'm not here to attack anyone," Karen began, voice calm, measured, concerned. "That word again. I just think we need to talk about safety." She clicked a remote. A slideshow appeared. Of course she made a slideshow. The first slide. Structural load risks in residential garages. Stock photos. Cracked concrete. Collapsed floors. Industrial gyms. Warehouses. Nothing remotely like my garage. She spoke slowly, deliberately. "Most garages are not designed to hold extreme static loads," she said, glancing at me briefly. "Especially when concentrated in one area." Murmurs. Someone shifted in their chair. She continued. "If something were to fail, cracks, subsidence, structural damage, the HOA could be held liable." There it was. The real trigger. Liability. Fear's favorite word. She flipped to the next slide. Proposed interpretation of Section 7.1 Safety and Risk Management. Proposed. Interpretation. In other words, made up. This section allows the HOA to intervene in situations that pose potential risk to shared infrastructure, she explained. The HOA president leaned forward. "I don't recall that section applying to interior personal equipment." Karen smiled sympathetically. "That's because it's rarely tested." That line landed exactly how she wanted it to. Doubt. Uncertainty. Confusion. Then she did it. She turned toward me. I'm not saying you're doing anything wrong, she said. But if something did happen. She let the sentence hang. I stood up. Slowly. Calmly. I had a structural engineer review the load limits, I said. My equipment is well within residential tolerances. Karen's smile flickered. Just for a second. Do you have documentation? She asked quickly. Of course, I replied. That surprised her. I pulled out my phone and forwarded the report to the board on the spot. Silence. Karen hadn't expected resistance. She'd expected submission. The pivot again. But Karen didn't stop. She leaned into her final card. Even if it's safe, she said softly, what kind of message does it send? There it was. Not rules. Not safety. Optics. People don't move into neighborhoods expecting industrial equipment next door, she continued. Industrial. She loved that word. The HOA president cleared his throat. We may need time to review this, he said. In the meantime, perhaps it would be best if the gym use were paused. Paused. Not stopped. But close enough. Karen's eyes lit up. She had them. Or so she thought. I spoke again. You're asking me to stop using my property based on a hypothetical concern, I said. One raised by someone who is not an engineer, not on the board, and not citing an actual rule. A few heads nodded. Karen stiffened. I'm just trying to protect the community, she snapped. No calm now. No concern. Just irritation. The mask slipped. That's when Mr. Alvarez, quiet, retired, rarely spoke, raised his hand. Didn't Karen remodel her garage last year? He asked. The room froze. She put in cabinets, stone countertops, and a refrigerator, he continued. That's more weight than some weights. Karen turned red. That's completely different, she said quickly. How? He asked. She didn't answer. The board postponed any decision. No pause order. No ban. Just further review. Karen gathered her things in silence. As she passed me, she leaned in. This isn't over, she whispered. I believed her. Because people like Karen don't lose quietly. They wait. They plan. They strike when they think no one is watching. And Karen still had one move left. Karen waited. Not days. Weeks. Long enough for the HOA to review. Long enough for the neighborhood to relax. Long enough for me to think she might finally be done. That was the mistake. Because when Karen moved, she didn't aim for the gym anymore. She aimed for me. The letter arrived certified. Signature required. That alone told me this wasn't another vague warning. This one was personal. Notice of conduct review. The HOA has received complaints alleging intimidating behavior, excessive noise, and activities that may create an unsafe or hostile environment for neighboring residents. Hostile. Intimidating. I laughed out loud. Not because it was funny. Because it was desperate. Karen wasn't arguing rules anymore. She was questioning my character. And that's when she crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She claimed that my workouts were aggressive. That the sounds were violent. That my presence in the garage was intimidating to passers-by. In other words, muscles equals menace. Discipline equals danger. Self-improvement equals threat. And the worst part, she signed it. Not anonymous. Not concerned residents. Her name. Her handwriting. Her arrogance. She thought fear would win where rules had failed. What Karen didn't know. I had cameras. Not for her. For my car. For package theft. For security. And they recorded everything. Every workout. Every timestamp. Every decibel reading. Every closed garage door. Every moment of silence between reps. I compiled it all. Weeks of footage. Organized. Labeled. Undeniable. Then I did something Karen never expected. I filed a formal harassment complaint. Against her. This time the room was full. HOA board. Neighbors. Property management rep. And Karen. She sat stiff, arms crossed, lips tight. No smile. No clipboard. No confidence. I presented my evidence calmly. Footage. Engineer report. Noise logs. Bylaw excerpts. And then, Karen's own emails. Printed. Highlighted. Projected. Her pattern became visible. Selective enforcement. Repeated targeting. Escalation after failed complaints. This wasn't concern. It was obsession. The property manager leaned forward. This constitutes harassment under HOA policy, she said. The board members exchanged looks. Karen shook her head. You're overreacting, she snapped. I was just trying to protect the community. The manager didn't blink. By fabricating violations? Silence. The kind that weighs more than any barbell. The decision. The HOA ruled in my favor. Unanimously. No violations. No restrictions. No monitoring. But that wasn't all. Karen received a formal warning. Any further complaints from her would require evidence. False reports would result in fines. Harassment would lead to sanctions. The rules she loved so much? They finally applied to her. Karen stopped watching my house. Stopped talking to neighbors. Stopped attending meetings. Her garage stayed closed. Her driveway empty. And my gym. It stayed exactly where it was. Quiet. Respectful. Legal. A place where progress was measured in effort, not control. The end. If you enjoyed this story, drop a comment and tell me what you would have done in my place. And if you want more real-life stories exposing entitled behavior and HOA insanity, subscribe to the channel, because there's always another Karen out there, and their stories always reveal more than they intend.